sends a message that we're growing up here.
We will call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. It is February 12th, and we are all excited to be here. Start going through some of these items on the agenda. Consent agenda, we've got expenditures, $1,732,569.61. Did anyone have any questions on the bills? Didn't think so. The agreements with Speedway and DTE. Speedway is 2 new monitoring wells, and DTE was the new above ground structure and the maintenance work that they were doing. Scott, do you want to go over those two?
Yeah, they're both quite easy. The Speedway situation, there is an existing license agreement, and we've actually had one for about 15 years out there, and it's through Eagle. They need to do different monitoring wells to help to determine how far any kind of contamination has gone there. And they're at the very tail end of that process now. So they want to put 2 monitoring wells on the other side of the road just to get a final test out there. We don't have any problem with it at all. Those will be flushed to the ground. They will be behind the curb, and we need a little bit of flexibility to work with them on the exact location, but there was a picture in the document.
Any questions on Speedway's new license agreement? Nope.
So DTE is a little bit of a different animal there. There's quite a big use of natural gas over there with the asphalt plant. And one thing that they've discovered is there's not a shut-off valve in that area. So they contacted us and said we need to put a shut-off valve here. It's really a public safety thing, which we agree 100%. But we knew that in order to do that shut-off valve, it'll be an above-ground thing, kind of like you've got on the Wilson Avenue east side of the road there by Aldi. And it's not going to be just pipes sticking up. There would be security fence around it. There would be landscaping around it, and then they would have to have guardrail along Mill Creek. So we said, we're going to give you permission through a DPW permit to get started on the emergency repair, but the above ground stuff will require a license agreement and have to come to the city commission. So that's why they're here. We've had a couple iterations of this site plan with them. We required that a professional engineer participated in the design because there's guardrail. We wanted to make sure that we weren't creating an unsafe situation there, and we feel pretty comfortable with what the position they're at right now.
Questions? Commissioner Burke?
I like the public safety piece. I live up there. I don't want to blow up. I drove by there today. It looked like there's a building in that kind of spot, if I have it right.
It's right up against the drain, and it's right about where the curb and gutter starts.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
On
not
the
sure
west side of the road
I'm not sure I
there.
was looking at the right spot then. Maybe
Okay.
I was wrong.
Yeah, it's a dead spot there, but it is around a curve, and it is next to the drain.
Other questions? All right, I think generally I feel consensus that we're comfortable with both of the agreements. I don't
Okay.
foresee any issues, so
I will get out of your way. Thanks.
feel free. All right, we have 4 resolutions on the agenda this evening. The first of which is the Waterford Village Streetlighting Resolution Agreement with Consumers Energy. Frank?
Yep. As you probably know, we have a line item in our budget to pay for all of your streetlights. It's about $250,000 a year, so that's certainly a benefit. And what we do as new developments come in is we look for a contract amendment with consumers. So that's what you have in front of you here. And it is for 11 new streetlights. They'd be LED streetlights. We ask consumers to please plan the location of the streetlights. So we're not lighting engineers. So they do that, and you see the plan sheet that's included with your packet. And then there's a bill of $9,270 that will be forwarded to the developer because they pay for install as part of their construction escrow. From a city standpoint, we need to do a resolution to amend our contract with consumers to add these new streetlights into the contract inventory and make sure we've got an updated list in there. So that's the agenda item for tonight, is a resolution to add these streetlights. If you look closely at the plan, there are 2 phases to this Waterford project, and this will cover all of the streetlight installs. So some can go in now at the area that's already developed, and the rest will go in with phase 2, which is scheduled for this year. And that's it in a summary.
Any questions? All right. Moving right along, we have the Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate for Specialty Tooling Systems. There will be a public hearing on it this evening. Any additional context?
Just that, if you recall, Andy Johnson, I don't know if Andy's gonna be here tonight or not. He was here back in the fall last year when they were building their initial building on the site, and I think at that point, he mentioned they were gonna build an additional building at some point. So they're already to that point of adding the additional 45,000 square foot building, so this certificate will cover that building and the jobs associated to it. So I think it's pretty straightforward. They're just going like gangbusters over there, and again, still on the same site. It's just a certificate. The district was set up for the whole site about a year ago, so it should be pretty straightforward. But again, not sure if Andy's going to show up, but this is the public hearing at 7. So.
Yeah, I think that's fine if he doesn't. Not that anything we say now would have any bearing on it, but did anyone have any questions on it? Comments? This is really close to the Muscatawa White Pine Trail, and I know that my in-laws are not super thrilled, but it's good for the city, and we'll be happy to have some more industrial development in the corridor there. Okay, so moving on, there are 2 appointments on the agenda this evening. The appointment of Rory Byrne to the Zoning Board of Appeals and Jeffrey Blahnik to the Board of Review respectively. These are the mayor's appointments, so if you have any concerns, take it up with him. Are there any questions or concerns on the appointments?
I have known Rory for most of my adult life, so I can speak to his character, and I think he'll be a good addition.
All right. Seeing no further comment on the appointments, I think I'm getting a general consensus that we are once again comfortable and will be ready for quick action at the 7 o'clock meeting. So that being the case, I think we can jump into comments. I don't know, Daryl, do you want to start off?
Sure. Again, for, I guess, everybody that was here, thanks for the discussion at the Infrastructure and Mobility Committee. That'll help us out as we proceed on developing the budget. So we'll be scheduling some Finance Committee meetings probably the next few weeks. We will be getting the first draft to the clerk's office by the 15th of February. That's required by charter, but that's just the first blush anyway. So we'll be fine-tuning that and then presenting all the information through the Finance Committee with the input of the Mobility Committee. So appreciate your work on that. So that's keeping us pretty well occupied these days. And then just a reminder, the next meeting on 26th, we're going to be having that upstairs at Station 2. So spoke with Jason this afternoon, should be all set up for that. Debbie will have it set up for a polling place the next day, but that'll be closer to the entrance, the kitchen side, and then so we'll have the meeting at the farther side by the window. I don't anticipate a big crowd, but we'll be meeting up there and should be all set to go there. And I believe they're going to have the Planning Commission the Wednesday before. If they have that meeting, we'll also be up there. So that's all I have.
Great, Frank?
And for that Planning Commission meeting, that will be a joint work session of City Commission, Planning Commission, ZBA, and DDA. And the site that we're going to look at is the Vista 45 area, and then all the way down to O'Brien Road. So it's all of the Goodale properties, essentially. And we've been working with our consultant to put together some exercises so that we can walk through what the plan currently says, do some pros and con analysis on the site itself, and then see if we can get out some concepts to potentially amend the current master plan or clarify what we have in the master plan. So that will be on the 21st. I believe we're starting at 5:30, and it should be a 2-hour session. We're not going to let it run over, so I think we're trying to prep that for 2 hours, and we're going to try to make it as interactive as possible. So if you can attend, it'll be upstairs, Fire Station 2, and look forward to seeing you there.
Great. I will be there. Commissioner Burke?
Yeah, I look forward to it as well. This will be a good chance for us to all kind of have a meeting of the minds on all this. Speaking of Planning Commission, they made a difficult decision last week to deny a proposal, which is never easy to do. But I believe they did absolutely the right thing. They stuck with our master plan and our vision for the future of the city. And I especially applaud Commissioner Chase for her efforts in kind of leading things last week. So thank you.
Commissioner Shane?
Yes, I don't know when it was. It was like the first, I think, of February. We had a meeting with the Community Engagement Committee, and we have got some really exciting stuff going on upcoming for this year. We're going to be doing something with the mayor and his book club, and so we're going to try to engage some of the people, some of the students that are within the grade 2 going into grade 3, and we've got some really exciting little things that will really entice families and such to participate. And then we're going to be doing some party in the park or at each of the parks in the month of June, and just some other things in the works. So really happy with that committee starting to really come together.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Chase?
Just to piggyback off of what Commissioner Burke said, we did deny the Green Ridge at PC last week. That was the only agenda item, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Babcock?
I attended the Grand Rapids Chamber annual meeting, the end of January. I think it was the end of January. And it was very informative. Did anyone else get to make it to that? I know the mayor was there. A lot of stuff that we're working on. Their focus is housing supply, talent, transformational projects, childcare, public safety, and immigration. And the economic forecast was pretty much steady. Again, last year they said that out of Michigan, West Michigan, it was the strongest economy in the state, so they're still holding to that with employment growth between 1.5% and 2%. So still seems like we're staying on track despite the rest of the nation. So that was good to hear.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Just a few things, of course, election related, because that's where we are. We're about 2 weeks away from the presidential primary. It'll be held on February 27th. First, today was the last day, or is the last day, to register to vote for the presidential primary any way other than in person at the clerk's office. So I'm not sure what time that cutoff is, but through today you can still register online and at the Secretary of State. After today, so beginning tomorrow, any Walker residents that still do need to register to vote have to come into the clerk's office with their proof of residency and photo ID. Also today we mailed out a second notice to any voters who we have not received their ballot selection form for. We're almost 600 people that we haven't received that from, so a pretty big mailing today. Anybody who we don't receive that from, we are obviously not able to send them a ballot because we don't know which one, but those voters are still able to vote. They don't have to vote by absentee or mail-in ballot. They can still go to the early voting site, which is in here in the chambers, begins on Saturday. That'll run through the 25th, and the polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 4 every day, all 9 days. And then, again, election days, February 27th. Polls will be open that day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
No, thank you very much. Looking forward to another election. For my part, interesting findings on the state of the West Michigan economy. I think that it's always interesting to watch how we trend against state and national trends. I think we have a tendency to kind of buck the direction that the rest of the state is going at times, and certainly when it comes to population growth over the last decade, we're in a different place than the rest of the state. So it does create a myriad of other issues, housing, things like that have increased pressure in our region and impacts cost disparately and things like that. But it's always interesting to watch kind of unfold. So getting into my things, appreciate members of the Mobility and Infrastructure Committee and frankly everyone here for joining for the Mobility and Infrastructure Committee. I think it was a good conversation. I think it kind of set the framework for some additional work that will occur moving forward. So all good things. We had a Waste to Energy Advisory Committee meeting with members that were appointed by other cities in the region. Really good conversation. I think that we're in a bit of a nebulous spot as it comes to waste management in Kent County. They did mention that there will be a meeting for managers and mayors in the very near future of the 6 cities to have a conversation because the 40-year agreement has finally come to an end, which established the facility, and there will have to be some conversation about what the next agreement looks like, some conversations about who all should be payers into the system and how all that waste should move. Particularly, I think it is further complicated because of what's happened at the Sustainable Business Park and how they have reached some challenges in kind of getting set up. So something to look forward to for you, Daryl. And we'll anxiously await the outcomes of that conversation, but I think it's a pretty important regional conversation that we're having because if we can't find a way to get some of these things working, we will be building another landfill somewhere. And I don't think that's the desired outcome. So 2025, I believe, is the date they decided on because it's a bit of an old, ancient agreement. So that is that. And I also wanted to just join others on the commission and commend the work by the Planning Commission. I know all too well how challenging some of these projects can be and how tasking it is to go through that process. So I just wanted to say I appreciate all of the work, certainly by the appointed officials and by Commissioner Chase this year to take on some really difficult projects. I think we're in a really important time in the city, and the work that's going on at the Planning Commission level really does drive a lot of the outcomes that we live with for decades to come. So really appreciate all that work, and more to come. With that being the end of our commission and manager, oh, Daryl, go ahead.
Well, I think Mr. Johnson's here from STS, so maybe he could provide us some background on that project, if save a little time and give us some background on what's going on out there before the public hearing, if you want.
Yeah, please.
Okay. This is just a continuation of the previous building that we built over there, which I was in front of you guys 2 months ago, maybe? November, 3 months? Time flies when you're having fun. So on the same property, we're building another 45,000 square foot building that will be finished mid-April. And then we're moving currently we're at our old MTS building at the end of Wilson. And we're leasing that building. That building was sold. We're leasing it, moving that into this bigger building. That building was 15,000 square feet. So this new building will be our fabrication and machine center. And then the construction of the cells that I talked about back in November will take place in the 200,000 square foot building, as well as the existing building at the corner of Wilson and 3 Mile.
Any questions? Well, I think we're comfortable moving forward with the approval, and we'll look forward to public comment at
Awesome.
the 7 o'clock meeting.
Thank you guys again. I appreciate it.
Well, got about 12 minutes. Want to just take a minute. Everyone can catch your breath, take some notes, come up with some brilliant commentary for the 7 o'clock meeting, and yeah, a little bit of
I don't know if
exercise.
the chief has anything.
Chief, any comments for us? No? All right, we'll take a break then. All right, I will call our regular city commission meeting to order. And Commissioner Burke will be offering our invocation this evening.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this wonderful weather and the chance to get out and about and around and under sunny skies. Guide us in our endeavors to improve the quality of life in the city and the greater community. Look after us all, especially those in need and those who protect us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Gilbert,
Present.
Commissioner Burke,
Present.
Commissioner DeShane,
Present?
Commissioner Chase,
Present.
Commissioner Babcock.
Present.
Sorry, I went backward that time. I kind of threw you off, didn't I?
All right, and I will look for a motion to approve the absences of Mayor Carey and Commissioner Groders this evening.
Motion? I'll support.
All right, I'm going to take the motion from Commissioner Babcock and support from Commissioner DeShane. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next we have the approval of the minutes. Are there any questions, concerns on the January 22nd meeting minutes? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
And support?
Support.
We'll take the motion from Commissioner Burke and support from Commissioner Heising Chase. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, and we are on to public comment on agenda items. Limited to agenda items only. Is there anyone who would like to comment on anything that we are discussing this evening? All right, seeing none, we will open the public hearing on the Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate for Specialty Tooling Systems. I believe I have to take a motion and support for this, so I will look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll support.
Motion from Commissioner Heising Chase, support from Commissioner DeShane. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The public comment is open for STS Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate. Is there any comment? Seeing none, I will look for a motion to close the public hearing.
I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there support? All right, motion Commissioner DeShane, support from Commissioner Babcock. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The public hearing is closed. Now we have the consent agenda, which includes expenditures in the amount of $1,732,569.61. The Speedway license agreement that was discussed in Committee of the Whole, and the DTE license agreement discussed in Committee of the Whole. Is there any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion for approval and support.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
All right, motion Commissioner Burke, support Commissioner Heising Chase. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, and we are into our resolutions. The first, sorry, I'm pulling everything up here. The first resolution, 24-701, to approve the Waterford Village street lighting, installation of 11 new streetlights. Can I get a motion and support?
I'll make a motion.
Support.
All right, motion Commissioner DeShane, support from Commissioner Babcock. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to Resolution 24-702, the Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate for Specialty Tooling Systems. Once again, looking for a motion and support.
I'll make a motion.
Support.
All right, motion Commissioner Heising Chase, support from Commissioner Babcock. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 24-703 to appoint to the Zoning Board of Appeals Rory Byrne. Looking for a motion and support.
Motion to approve Rory on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Support.
All right, motion Commissioner Babcock, support from Commissioner Burke. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, Resolution 24-704 to appoint to the Board of Review Jeffrey Blahnik, and support.
I'll make a motion.
I'll support.
All right, motion Commissioner DeShane, support from Commissioner Heising Chase. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have made it through our action items. Now I will invite other public comment. Please join us, and if we can get your name and address for the record, and generally, public comment is limited to 5 minutes, but
Got it.
given the attendance, we're happy to allow a little bit of grace.
Well, I can tell stories. That's a good. Hi, my name is Bob Stoll. Good start. I live at 1040 White Pine Drive, which is in Ward 3. I'm just west of Butterworth and kind of over by Millennium Park. Congratulations on running efficient meetings after 40 years in higher ed. I can't tell you how many times I've sat through meetings that lasted much longer. I even brought a bottle of water, figured I'd be here for a while. But anyways, I got a few notes and then I'll give you a handout, but I know if you give a handout to everybody, then they don't listen to what you say, so I'll wait till the end and then I'll give you that. After a lot of research to find a very peaceful location, I moved to Walker in 2008. This is really to help my wife, who was battling cancer at the time. I'm happy to report she's doing well now, but we love our neighborhood and the location. It's a real wooded area, lots of larger size lots, several acres. But I want to take a moment to have you kind of imagine sitting in your home or on your deck or on the porch or watching a movie on TV or whatever it might be. Now imagine the tranquility of that all of a sudden being abruptly interrupted by the sound of a helicopter. As it approaches, it gets louder and louder. I don't know how many of you spent time around helicopters, but as it flies over your house and the roar of the noise, the helicopter gets really loud. The noise continues to fade as it goes north, heads into Grand Rapids, and then it becomes quiet for several minutes. And then shortly you hear the sound of the helicopter as it heads back towards Jenison, where it's going to land at Riverview Airport, really in Georgetown Township there. And there it'll reload with the next group. And tours run every 20 minutes, and so that's a lot of flights. Those flights just started last year in 2023, about Valentine's Day, actually, if I remember right. Needless to say, it really creates a challenging change to our peaceful wooded location. I had hoped that the tours would kind of exhaust themselves and the demand would kind of wane, but they're ramping up and continues to get going even more and more. So unfortunately, that's not the case. But the noise is not acceptable to me, and I'm sure to most of my neighbors. I see some stuff on Facebook, or my wife does anyways. So I got to thinking, all right, what am I going to do about it? Because I need to find out what action's been happening in any of the municipalities or at the airport or whatever else. So started doing a little work with that. I first stopped in and actually talked with Frank in the city manager's office, and he was real helpful and mentioned that he really hadn't heard much hadn't heard complaints. I told him I was planning to come to the meeting. I've been watching minutes over the last year to see if other people were in complaining about this, and I haven't seen anything. So I'm like, okay, I know it's a small group probably that's being impacted, but it definitely is a huge impact. So I also went to the Georgetown Township offices and met with folks there. They hadn't got any complaints that they knew of. They were going to check with other staff to see where, you never know where the phone call ends up in the case. And then I went to the airport and I talked with a woman that runs the airport, answers the phone and coordinates all the stuff there. She replied she's gotten tons of phone calls over the last year. A lot of them really threatening, and just she hates to answer the phone anymore in the sense of what's going on there. So my overall findings, I just wanted to mention that. Well, then I talked with a pilot. I talked to a bunch of the local pilots all hanging out at the table, and they said, well, come back and talk to Ryan, who's the pilot, and he's pretty good to work with. So I came back on the weekend and caught him at a time where there was actually a gap in the schedule, and so we talked for a while, and here's some things I found out. That they were, like I mentioned before, they were in Sparta, and then it was cheaper to move down to Riverview because it was less distance to get into Grand Rapids and back, so it saves on gas, and they're trying to keep the cost down because then more people can afford to do it, so I understood that. He said they got noise complaints, the FAA did, and they came out and investigated and kind of gave them a clean bill of health because helicopters need to go airborne and then take off, and so there's all those kinds of things, but they got approved to continue on with their operation. They fly an average, the pilot said an average of 10 trips a day, and that's 52 weekends a year, and they operate on Saturday and Sunday from 12 until 8. So if you do the math, it's about 1,000 trips a year. So that means 2,000 trips back and forth my backyard, so to speak, because they got to come and then go. And so I talked to the pilot about, all right, I realize I don't want to pass this problem on to my neighbors, but all the industrial zone that's on the east side of the Grand River is pretty much wide open, and it's not going to bother a whole lot of people. So he said, yeah, they fly this way because they want to look at all the I'm not in Serenity Ridge, but there's a lot of nice big houses up in there, and that's one of his sightseeing tour spots, is to show them all the houses that are all, you know, out in a nice location. So anyways, in talking with him, you know, if you can do something to move the route and get over to that side of the river, it would really make a big difference for the residents that are here in the city. I hate to even say the city where I live. I'm up north, and you wouldn't even know you're in the city. So I guess my concerns are, what action can the city of Walker do? Because this is really residents here are being impacted. The Georgetown folks, it's basically leaving their property and head north to Grand Rapids. So between the city and the county and the FAA and whatever other officials, you know, what can we do? So I'm starting to look at, I did a little research. Milwaukee's had issues in their location, and the folks worked with local officials and got the route changed or modified, and people probably were somewhat satisfied with that from what it sounded like. So I'm really willing to assist in the process. I'm willing to get activism started within the community to get the residents involved, do all the things that go on with that. Again, 40 years in higher ed, I'm usually on your side of the table and responding, working with student government or whatever the case may be to deal with issues as they come up. So that's just one of the reasons that as I talked to Frank, I wanted to make sure that you all knew what my concerns were, and that for me, I look at this really as the start to a process and figure out, you know, what we might be able to work towards. So I've got that handout, and I'll hand that out real quick. $55 trip, it's the short 10-mile one, and then the other longer one is I think $125 a person. And if you look at where, I think you can see it okay, but basically you can see it's running over the residents in Ward 3 that are on the, I'll say the Millennium Park area. And I'm disappointed that Representative Gruters isn't here, because I know she lives on Bend Drive from what it said, so she'll probably have some input on this too. So I guess I'll answer any questions, but I did a little bit of information on there so you can kind of see where it's at, but I'm right in the middle of that flight path. And so it's for those of you that remember nails on a chalkboard, it's that irritating when it happens, and it can continue about every 10-15 minutes as they're coming and going. So it's not nice to be around when that's happening. And I know he said Valentine's Day, he already had 15 flights booked for tomorrow, and he figured he's gonna have a bunch more by the time the next couple of days with all the husbands that figure out they gotta get something else booked, so. So anyways, that's gonna be my evening tomorrow night, is listening to that go over my house. So I just wanted to answer any questions and look to follow up with this and see what might be done and where we might go with it. I appreciate all of you and giving me the time, as well as your leadership and your service to the community, because I know it takes a lot of time to be engaged in the many decisions that you have to make, and to run a city as big as Walker. And it's one of those kind of anonymous things. I think that most people, they don't realize how big of a city this is, from north to south, and all the things that go on. So I probably ran over time, but like you said, I get time to fill. So I don't know if you have any questions, or if I can follow up later with somebody to figure out where to go. Yeah,
Commissioner Burke? Just a couple of thoughts. I'm a helicopter pilot. I've got about 3,000 hours flying helicopters, so
oh, good.
I know the sound you're talking about.
Okay.
Have you talked to the Grand Rapids FSDO, which is the Flight Service District Office for the FAA?
I have not.
I would
I know my
recommend
wife filed a online.
you go see them. Their office, I'm not sure where their office is, but it's FSDO. The FAA has really, as far as I know, they're the only ones that have authority over this kind of thing. I don't know what the city could do other than pressure. But the FSDO has really complete authority for the entire, this particular FSDO here in Grand Rapids has all of West Michigan and I think part of the Upper Peninsula. So it's a pretty big region they cover, but they are located here in Grand Rapids. I would go in and see them.
Yeah, okay, perfect, that's right.
And
the pilot was telling me about the different ceiling decks levels with the Grand
yeah,
Rapids
so
Airport.
there'll be a certain,
and-
yeah, they might be able to prescribe, so a helicopter probably has to stay 500 feet over houses and that sort of thing.
Yep.
But you could get it designated as a, I mean, you could get Millennium Park designated as a wilderness area, then you gotta stay 2,000 feet, and you wouldn't even hear them. So there are some things to play around with if they wanted to work with you and be creative.
Okay.
But I would go in there and make an appointment, sit down and talk to some people, because they may have some ideas of things they can do. They could also perhaps get that route changed where you're mostly flying over the river, ingressing to the sites in the city and then flying over the river to get back out.
Yeah.
That's not particularly uncommon in local course rules around an area. What they can't do is they can't go too high in certain areas because then they get into, they're too high.
The approach
and they
from the
interfere with the
airport, yeah.
airlines. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. But they're the ones to go sit down and talk to.
Could you repeat that again? I'm just a little.
FSDO, Flight Service District Office.
Flight Service District Office, okay.
And I will say, as someone who lives on Butterworth, from right there, like, you obviously can hear them and stuff like that too.
I mean, I get it a lot too, but it's
Yeah.
hospital stuff, it's not
Yeah.
tour stuff.
I think that's what I more amounted to, is just assuming that it's AeroMed, same with at my grandparents' house, just down the road too.
Yeah, and
so.
every time you would hear a helicopter, oh, I hope that person's okay or whatever.
Yeah.
Or realizing state police has been running, Grand Rapids Police
Yeah.
running, stuff at night, but this is just one of those that just kind of jabs at you as it flies over us.
Yeah, and this is the first complaint that I've heard in regards to this, but.
And I
yeah,
haven't gotten anything even as third ward commissioner either from anyone
Yeah,
either,
I know
so.
that where I live, we are in a AeroMed zone, so I always do everybody's okay,
Yeah.
as I hear that, but I wouldn't think, I mean, are we violating any of our noise ordinances? I haven't heard anything, so I can't think that we are. So I don't know really
In my
much.
read, I was kind of understanding that you really don't have authority on the air, and the noise
Probably not.
ordinances are really cars and snowmobiles and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
I think we're superseded by federal law even.
Yeah, you're right, superseded by that.
But I also would offer is at some point, or some way to, you mentioned changing, the Millennium Park title of what it is, or creating different zones or timeframes or things, ordinances that might address that. And I was wondering with Georgetown, whether they even knew that they had a commercial flight operation running out of their city, because, I mean, it's impacting us, but are there ways that could be regulated with ordinances or kinds of things like that? So But
Frank.
I appreciate the,
Question on the ordinance aspect of it is that we don't really want to regulate another airspace if it's already regulated by like the FAA. Is that like the thought with that?
Well,
Right.
remember, we
Yeah,
always
that's what I
start with
thought.
legal foundations
Yeah.
whenever we're dealing with some kind
Yeah.
of regulation. And my understanding is this is all under the purview of FAA.
Mm-hmm.
If there's anything that would apply to a local underneath that, then I think we can look at that at ordinance committee. And my inclination, and Tom knows better than I do, who has jurisdiction over these flights? So, I don't think we have that.
Yeah, that's what I thought so too.
Yeah,
Okay.
so for what it's worth, I think we're happy to act as a partner as we move forward on the journey, investigating what options there are. I think Commissioner Burke's advice is the
Yeah.
best starting point. And then I think we'd be happy, I'd certainly be happy, or Commissioners Heisinger, Chase, and Groders, potentially to have a follow-up conversation on what next steps need to occur
yeah,
to.
no, okay, perfect. Again, for me, I realize this is the first step in the journey, because I was waiting for somebody else to take care of it, and it's like, all right, I'm retired, I'm going after it this year, so. But I appreciate your information, that was really helpful, that, to have that insight, because that's where do you go? This is one of those that doesn't fit too well, so.
Yeah, and another thing that tends to be helpful for us, and just more of at a individual level, but if you can collect some names, things like that from other neighbors impacted, that's always good for us to get a sense
Well, I
of
mean,
how widespread that
I could
gets.
easily put together an online survey. I'm willing to stand on the street and collect signatures and all that. Not in the street, but next to but if I don't need to do all that, what I mean, then I don't want. And again, I wasn't trying to rally. I mean, you have enough issues where people get all bent out of shape. And I'm really surprised that some of the people that this is going over haven't, maybe people just, again, where do you start? So I did a little bit of homework and I'm starting on it, so. I appreciate that. Should I follow up with Frank as a point person, or how does that work?
I think your next step, after you've got, after you've had that first initial conversation, probably Frank, and then include Commissioners Heisinger, Chase, and Groders as the folks that represent that part of the city.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll do that once I check into that and follow back up with Frank. I was trying to do that, so.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, not often we have enough time to troubleshoot a problem live. Any other additional comments, commissioners, managers? Madam Clerk? No? Then, do we need motion and support to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I'll support.
Motion, Commissioner DeShane, support from Commissioner Heisinger Chase. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.